Now, from the Pope John Paul II Cultural Center in Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome to The World Over Live. I want to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving. We've got an inspiring and entertaining show for you. Screenwriter, director, and author Randy Wallace is here to talk about his faith, his amazing career in Hollywood, as well as his latest project, a novel titled The Touch. And country music legend Colin Ray joins us to discuss his role as a national spokesman for a group you might have heard about. He'll also sing a song off his latest CD, and later in the program, I'll bring you an encore of my interview with actor-turned-singer Robert Davi and his affectionate tribute to the music of Frank Sinatra. Davi sings Sinatra. But before we go to the interviews, this is our 15th Thanksgiving together. And I'd be remiss if I didn't offer my thanks to a few people, starting with you, our loyal and supportive viewing family. Some of you have been with us from the beginning. Others have found us just this year. A lady came up to me the other day and she said she watches each week, but she's still upset with us for moving to Thursday because she always knew the week was over when I showed up. Well, I'm sorry, ma'am. But I love that so many of you have made the show a part of your lives, taking the time rather to watch each week or DVR us. And I just want you to know how appreciated you are. You are also the reason we labor each week to find the best guests, to dig into the issues so important to all of our lives. I also want to thank my producers, Chris Edwards, James Faulkner, for all their hard work throughout the year, and the hardworking crew here in Washington and in Birmingham, of course, Doug Keck and Michael Warsaw. I thank you all. Now to our first guest. His 1995 screenplay Braveheart was nominated for an Oscar. He's gone on to distinguish himself as one of the most accomplished screenwriters and directors. He's written and directed The Man in the Iron Mask, We Were Soldiers, and most recently directed Secretariat. But Randall Wallace's faith plays an important role in all of his work. I recently spoke with him via satellite about that interplay and his latest novel, which is an exploration of healing and the responsibility that comes with the gifts we're given. The book is called The Touch. Here's our touching interview. Randy, you've said that your stories often come from personal fascinations and experiences. What of those led you to write this new novella, The Touch?
Well, Ray, I have always had an admiration for people who could perform under pressure. You do it all the time. You do a countdown and suddenly you're on the air. Athletes do it, particularly soldiers do it. But pastors, husbands, wives, parents are on the line oftentimes when we're not really aware of how significant the exchange is we're about to have and how love is on the line and faith is. Lives are changed in moments that we don't see coming. And that intrigues me as a dramatist with writing movies, and it really intrigues me as a novelist in trying to find a story in which you can find those intimate moments in which a whole heart was changed and a life was changed.
Mm-hmm. Now, Randy, most people know you, of course, as a director, as a writer, Braveheart and Man in the Iron Mask and Secretariat. Most recently, you directed Secretariat. How has that enriched, if you will, your writing now that you're returning to novels, which is, you've actually done this for years. Most people, many didn't realize you've got a rich number of books here as a novelist.
Yes, The Touch is my 8th novel, and I started as a novelist along with writing songs. I've done a lot of different things that were in the field of creating stories. And I think what happens is that each one of those things changes you somewhat. The Touch is an extremely compressed sort of story. It's the kind of novel you could read in an evening if you wanted to. It has that kind of focus. It's not full of filler like it seems to me a lot of novels are. And in movies, you have to tell stories in a really compressed, compact way, a focused way, which, like in Braveheart, the battle scenes were not only telling a story of battle, but the story of courage and love. And in the same way, I've tried to learn to do that more and more with my writing. When we're talking about a doctor who's in love with a young woman who doesn't have his skill, but she has a greater heart than he does for other people, and he recognizes that. Well, trying to figure out how to tell that story in a compressed way, it really helped me to have a film background to do that.
No, it's a beautiful story. It opens in the Sistine Chapel, and I don't want to give everything away, but your doctor in the story, Andrew Jones, proposes to a girl there in the Sistine Chapel. We're all sort of caught up immediately in this relationship, their faith, their love, and then that love is ripped apart, and then we're thrust into the future. Give me your take on why, if you look at this story, it seems to me it's really about gifts and the responsibility one has toward the gifts given by God. Why that focus, Randy?
Well, that is a great question, and in some ways it's the question of life. Whether we see life itself as a gift, and whether we think we own our own lives, or if God owns our lives, and we owe our lives back to God. C.S. Lewis said beautifully in some of his work that we think of time as our own, even though we can't create a moment of it, and we can't hold on to a moment of it. And I believe the walk of faith is largely the question about where did our lives come from, and where do they go, and what is our choice in that event, in that unfolding. And the choice to give, to see our lives themselves as gifts, is at the heart of the story of the touch. We're at a time of year when we look at gifts, and gifts become a kind of obligation, a chore. We think of going and shopping for presents as something that we're going to be judged on. Was our gift good enough? And our gifts tend to lose the real spiritual, transforming quality of the gift that is given in love, the gift that in some ways has no obligation and has every obligation that you be changed by the gift that you give back. And that was something I thought was crucial to every life. I don't know how to tell a story that doesn't move me. When I've written the other films I've had that have the stories that have become films, I've always been moved, or if I wasn't, no one else was going to be. And in the scene you described, the opening of the touch, when they're staring at the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and Andrew Jones' love of his life, Faith, is sitting next to him, lying next to him, and she says, "You have hands like that," and he says, like Adam's or like Michelangelo's, and she says, "No, you have hands like God, because when you touch me, I feel alive." And I think that's the kind of gift that moves me. That's the kind of story that catches me up and makes me want to know what happens next.
And one of the things I loved about it, it really, there's an element of it where secret giving becomes really important to these characters, and I think also to all of us. Tell us a little bit about that and why that's important, this notion of giving secretly.
Well, Ray, when I was a child and hearing the Bible passages about the widow's mite, I recognized early on that an obligation in giving, an event that occurred in giving, had to be what was given in the heart first. It happened in the heart first. And then those passages in the Bible about when you enter your closet to pray, don't let your right hand know what your left hand is doing. And those things about the self-righteous people wearing psalters and Bible verses on their foreheads or their wrists to show their righteousness. Those challenges in the Bible to our pride and our manipulations are powerful. And the issue of giving, when you're giving in secret, becomes something magical. I have to tell you, I attend a church in Los Angeles often called First Congregational Church. And Lloyd C. Douglas was a pastor there some years ago, over now I guess a half century ago. But Lloyd C. Douglas wrote The Robe, and he wrote a book called Magnificent Obsession, which became one of my mother's favorite movies. And that story had the first seeds of this notion for me of how if you give in secret, your gift becomes even a certain kind of gift to you, because it fills you with the obsession to give more, because the joy of giving is so great. And that joy is actually taken away when the person that you are giving to knows that you were the giver and feels an obligation to you. It's not bad, I think, to know that that someone gave, but it is a dilution of the gift when they feel that because they've received, then they're obliged to give back to you. It's a whole different thing.
And the gift has several levels in this book, in The Touch. There's the gift that of money, of treasure, and then there's the gift of a talent. In this case, a talent given to this doctor, his hands, his ability. And at one point in the book, he encounters this priest in a sort of hard luck cathedral, a little dingy place. And the priest says, you offer your hand to God, whether he uses it, whether your hand becomes his hand, is up to him. And that really just sort of leapt out at me as I was reading. Why did you put that line in there?
Ray, honestly, it's a theme that I'm involved with every day. That my pride of wanting to write a story that changes the world, that makes people better. There's nothing wrong with those ambitions, but oftentimes it's so easy for it to become about me, about me wanting to say, look at what I did. And that passage that you mentioned is something that I have had to tell myself. It's one of my own prayers for myself, that all you can do and all you really should do is offer your hand to God, and God will decide whether to use your hand as his hand. And the really miraculous thing is that we seldom know what becomes of the gifts that we give. We cast our bread upon the water. We give from the sanctity of our hearts the best we have. I tell you, it's interesting to me as you ask that question, and it causes me to think of so many things. One of my favorite hymns, Christmas carols really, is The Little Drummer Boy. I have no gifts to bring to lay before the King, shall I play for you? And all he had to give was the gift of his playing on his drum, and that's what he gave. And that to me is part of the beauty of this season. I wanted The Touch to be about giving and to be the kind of book that would be a gift that I could give to other people and that others might give to each other.
Yeah, and it is, and it's really, it's hard to describe. It's a love story. It's really about the gifts we're given and sharing them with others, but it's about this notion of beauty and art and redemption all being bound up in the work we do, the work we're given to do. Randy, I want to shift slightly here and talk about your background. Born in Tennessee, you spent a lot of time in Virginia, and I spent time looking back at some of your work. Do you consider yourself a Southern writer? And what impact do you think that has on your storytelling?
Gosh, that's a great question too, Ray. Yes, I am a Southern writer in that I'm a Southerner who writes. I don't set many stories in the South. I have
but this
a couple
one is.
that I'm
the
working.
touch is set there.
Yes, it is, and that's to me a big part of the story, that Andrew Jones and Faith, the woman he loves, are both from Appalachia, and then when Jones has the horrible loss of losing Faith, of losing her, and losing his belief in his own talent, his own gift, and when he has to now rely on God for that gift, he meets someone who's from Chicago, who doesn't have the same culture, the same background as he does. And that's my experience in going through life. And in the South, we have a particular culture. I have a friend who is Islamic, and even though she is a Muslim, she loves the South because she says Southerners tend to really value God in life, that's part of the fabric of the South. And it struck me so much, it moved me and made me proud, really, of my fellow Southerners, that they could welcome someone who believed differently and yet could welcome them with love. And I love the notion I heard in a sermon recently that unless we see God in others, they're not likely to see God in us.
Oh, it's beautiful. And no, when I read this, I thought, here's a Southern writer at the top of his game. And when I say Southern writer, I mean, I was born in New Orleans. I loved Southern writers, Flannery O'Connor and Tennessee Williams and Faulkner. But what I mean about it is the understanding of humanity and the things that last, and the simplicity, if you will, of those relationships, so rendered in a powerful, beautiful way. And it's rare to find that in novels today. There's a lot of kind of pyrotechnics, not unlike films. And your films have that same mark, that depth and understanding of humanity, of love and hope beyond the odds. Talk for a moment about Braveheart. I'm sure you get so tired of talking about Braveheart, but so many I know in the viewing audience, and I love this film. This was written, or apparently it began, during very difficult circumstances for you. Can you relate a little bit about what you were going through at that moment when you took up pen to start this screenplay?
Oh, sure, Ray. And I never do tire of talking about Braveheart. Intriguingly for me, when it comes on television, I'll still have friends call me up say, I just watched it again and I saw something new, and it touched me again and it moved me. And frankly, whatever this says about me, it moves me as well. It continues to move me. I certainly do have a different experience because I wrote it out of this time when I'd had a real struggle to get started as a writer. I really wasn't sure if it was my calling. I believed it was, but I thought I should go try to do something that was safer. And like so many true callings do, it kept calling me back. And I had worked and had been really successful in television, but it had some reverses there. The economy was in a real down place, much like it is now.
Right.
People were losing their jobs. I didn't know if I would be able to keep my house, the house that I had bought with my wife then for a place for our children to grow up. And things were just upside down for me. I got down on my knees and prayed sincerely to God that it may not be the best thing that my children should grow up in a house like we were living in. Maybe we should go back and grow up in a house that that was very simple, like the one I had grown up in myself. Maybe that would be the best thing for my sons. And I asked God that if that was His will and the best thing for my children, to please help me to bear that and experience that and stand up to it. That change in fortunes, that it felt like if I were to lose the house that I had put so much heart and money into, but that if I would go down, let me go down telling the story that I wanted to tell, not writing for what the marketplace was telling me that I should be writing, but writing what I wanted to see, writing what would move my own heart. And it was out of that experience that the story of Braveheart came. I mean, lines like, every man dies, not every man really lives, were directly out of that experience for me of thinking, this is the life God has given me. I don't know how much of it I'll have. I don't know if I'll have it tomorrow. I don't know if I'll have an hour from now. But in these hours that I do have, in this now that I have, let me give my heart fully to what God has given me, to the feelings, and not just the talent that God has given each of us, whatever our talents are. But God has given us what we love. God gives us what we're willing to suffer for, what we're willing to struggle for. And I wanted to receive that gift and complete the circuit by loving back in the same way.
Yeah. Randy, I wish we had another hour. We only have a couple of minutes here. You say, and I could just follow up with a series of questions. I won't now, but we'll do it at another time. You've said writing itself is an act of faith. How so? How is it an act of faith for you?
When we are confronted in life with those challenges that create in us, for however that voice is created, wherever the voice comes from, the dark voice that says, we can't do it, God doesn't love us, this doesn't matter, nothing you do will make a difference. When we're confronted with that, then we are on the very edge of life and love, and just we're at the very tip of the hand of God, I believe, because the hand reaches out to us to touch us, to say, yes, you can. Believe. Act in faith, not in the sureness that what you do is going to become a bestseller, is going to change the mind of someone that you're desperate to see go into a different direction. That it's going to cause someone to love us, show our love for us, or show their love to someone else, for someone else. We are confronted with that doubt. And the moments of doubt can be the trigger to act in faith. And that's what writing is for me. It's to get up in the morning, usually, and to say, I don't know what will become of what I'm writing, but I want this to be the best I can do now. It will be the voice, it'll be listening to the voice that God has for me right now, and trying to express it in the best I can. You know, at one point I was going to call the story that's now The Touch, I was going to call it The Hand of God, because of that moment in the Sistine Chapel when God reaches down and touches humanity, and that we have that touch for each other, and we give first with our hearts, and that is what the touch really is.
Randy, a final question. Do you plot when you write? Or do you sort of feel your way through the story and write one clean draft? Or a messy draft, as the case might be?
It's a very messy draft, and I plot as I write. If I have a sense of where the story is going to go, I'll jot that down or try to remember it. But the greatest thing about writing for me is that you get to be listening to the tale as well as telling it. That the story is unfolding inside you. I can give you one of the best examples from Braveheart.
Sure.
When I was writing the last scene, when the axe is falling toward William Wallace's head, toward his throat, and I had known that the story would probably end with his execution, but I didn't know what was going to happen at that moment. I certainly didn't know how I could show to a film audience how this would happen. And I stopped and I thought, well, if I can't show the axe hitting him, what would he see? Where would he look? And then I thought, well, he would look toward his friends. And at that moment, I wrote, in the last moment of his life, William Wallace turns his eyes toward his friends. And it was not until that very moment that I knew that she, the woman he loved, was standing there with them to tell him that she was where he was going. And I wept. And that was the way it has happened for me. Whenever I'm writing a story, it thrills me when you say that you started reading The Touch and you couldn't stop until it was over. That the story moved me in that way. I didn't know what was going to happen. I wasn't sure what was going to happen to the woman, the first woman he loved. I wasn't sure what was going to happen to the new relationship that he found, how that story was going to play out. And there were times when it moved me, sometimes to tears and sometimes to laughter. But it always moved me, and I think if it doesn't, it won't move anyone else.
Well, your work always moves me, and this theme of hope in darkness and the love and the courage that you need sometimes to find your way to that hope is exemplified, I think, in all of your work, and it's here in The Touch as well. Randy Wallace, thanks so much for being with us, and I hope we can do this again soon.
Me too, Ray. Thank you.
The Touch from Tyndale Publishing is available at bookstores everywhere and online at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and other retailers. It's a beautifully written tale and well worth your time. Well, I'm here with a Nashville legend. He's sold over 8 million albums since his 1991 debut, All I Can Be. He's also a 5-time nominee for Country Music's Male Vocalist of the Year. And just this year, he was named the national spokesman for Terri Schaivo's Life and Hope Network. Please welcome to the World Over Live, Colin Ray. Colin, great to have you here.
So nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
Well, and I'm delighted. I want to talk a little bit about his Love Remains, which is your new CD, but I want to back up a little bit. Your family, you were really immersed in the music scene from a very early age. Tell us about your mom. She opened for some of the great acts of America, really.
Yeah, well, she was a professional singer all my growing up years, but her most favorite claim to fame was she got to work when she was 17 years old, got to work on 6 shows with Elvis, Johnny Cash, Carl Perkins, Jerry Lee Lewis on this package show Sun Records was doing through the Arklatex, that area, they call it. And she and her sister were like local. They were well known in the churches around there, singing in churches. So somehow or another they wound up on the bill opening for all these people. In the last 2 or 3 shows, Elvis had heard them and really liked them and was kind of flirty with them in a harmless way, and had asked if they would come up and sing backgrounds with him and his band. And so.
Now, you grew up in Arkansas. You were in the Bible Belt there, a good evangelical believer. You're in the music scene, and something happens. There's a couple that comes and sees you regularly as you perform. What made you focus on that couple?
Well, it was actually, I was 23 actually. We'd moved to Portland, Oregon. I was just simply for work. There was they loved us out there, maybe because it was during the urban cowboy thing and we were real Texans, had the real lingo in there. And so we were doing really well out there. And there was this couple that came to see me all the time, and I made friends with them as I was always working the room. But they were really big fans of the band, and they liked my singing, and so I became friends with them. We hit it off easily, and I noticed that she wore a crucifix around her neck all the time, which I was smart enough to know that probably meant she was a Catholic, you know. And we became friends. And one time I just asked her, I said, ask them, is it okay if can I come to church with you sometime? Because I was curious, because as you said, growing up in the Bible Belt there's so many misconceptions, and I had heard them all about, because they worship statues, and you hear all this stuff, but I never really believed it. I kind of knew that there had to be more to it than that. And I had been looking anyway, because I felt like the faith that I had been taught, the style that I had been taught was I felt like there had to be more to it. There had to be more than just what I was being taught. And so I was a pretty apt pupil once I walked into a church the first time and felt the body of Christ inside the room. And I did. I felt it overwhelmingly heavy, and a good heaviness. And I knew there was something in here. Then this wasn't just another meeting hall.
And you converted at 23.
Converted shortly thereafter. It didn't take me long. And as a good Baptist, I backed everything up with Bible. I said, well, as I was going through RCIA, it would be like,
where's that in the Bible?
Where is this in the Bible? And you know what? It was all in the Bible. And it's almost like I'd never really seen the Bible, truly. It was very blatant and very plain if you just know where to look. And so I was a really easy sell, though, actually, because I knew I was in the right place.
Now, you are now spokesman for the Terri Schaivo Life and Hope Network. I want to back up a little bit and connect the viewer with how you came to this position. Your wife was in a coma shortly after childbirth. Tell me about that situation and the pressure that was being applied to you. Did that have anything to do with your current spokesman for this group?
I would have never thought going in that this is where God would lead me, but I do have a background and knowledge because of what happened to her back in 1985, being in a real full-blown flatline coma for 9 weeks. Long story, how she got there, but basically she was on full-blown respirator. I mean, there was nothing. She was the classic coma, unlike Terri, who, in America we were sold by the mainstream media that she was in a coma, that she was on extraordinary means of life support, she was on a ventilator, and none of which was true. She was awake, it's so having seen what could happen with Connie, she is alive and well and doing fine. So the point is,
after 8 months.
9 weeks. But then in the hospital 13 months.
Wow.
Finally came home, and she's with us today. So living a normal life. So I mean, the moral there is no one can determine what's going to happen when someone has a brain injury or has a cognitive disability. No one can tell you what's going to happen, although the doctors, neurologists will try to tell you. And even in '85, which was a while back, I was immediately getting pressure, and it was about a week into it where the doctor said, well, you do have the right to put an end to this if you want. And I was like, what are you talking about? Her mom's sitting right there next to me, sobbing. And of course, I just said, I was kind of like, don't talk to me. I don't want to talk about this, And as fate would have it, one day the Lord just woke her up. And but to think that I sort of could have easily said, okay, I'm going to make the decision because I have the power over her. How ridiculous is that? And it's only going to get worse and worse and worse.
Now, tell me about your granddaughter, Haley, and because this was another not dissimilar situation.
Well, Haley was born, we thought, normal, had a tremendous, perfect delivery. I mean, everything couldn't have went any better. And at about 2 years old, we noticed that her development was a little slow. And then, to make a long story short, by the time she turned 4, she was really starting to spiral downhill. Now, it was an undiagnosed illness. No one ever could tell us what it was. I took her all over the country, everything I could pull out of the hat to try to save her, as a patriarch of a family does. You just do anything you can because you believe you can fix it. And I think this was a huge lesson to me that we're not in charge of anything. God had his own agenda, and he wanted to take her home. But I think because of that, and again, Haley was on a feeding tube, just like Connie had been, just like my son had been until he was 4 years old.
Really?
So when I heard that Terri was really killed by denying her food and water, I don't even remember that being reported. We got the impression that, it was just she was in such bad shape that maybe
she wasn't
just
actively dying.
Just the machine came unplugged, or maybe it was just this magic pill, and it was a peaceful, beautiful. No one. I don't remember anyone talking about it being 2 weeks of barbaric starvation and dehydration, which is what it was, to someone who was aware of what was going on to her. And but because of Haley, her situation and Connie many years ago. I have seen coma. I have seen severely disabled and sick people, and I've seen what can happen if you just leave them alone and let God do His thing.
You wrote a beautiful song, "She's With Me," for your granddaughter.
Yeah.
Tell me how that came to be.
Well, I actually wrote that about a year before her death, because we didn't know when it was going to happen. I still believed God might save her, might change His mind and decide to let us keep her. But I wrote the song sort of as a tribute to her life. And maybe in an explanatory way to people who just assume that it's misery having a child like that, and they have no idea. Is it hard? Oh yeah. Is it a burden? Is it a cross? Absolutely. But not because of the work that's put into it and the trouble you go through, because having to watch someone you love so much struggle to even swallow, to let alone not to be able to eat, not to be able to speak, not to be able to scratch an itch if she's itching. You know, just pneumonia every month. She's in the hospital with pneumonia again for a week. I mean, you know, that is a cross for all of us. But the joy that you have by having a saint in your house, and that's exactly what children like that are, because they can't sin. They're spotless. How could they don't know how to sin? They don't know about sin. They are just struggling to survive each day. And I was so proud to walk into a mall strolling her, or into a restaurant, and people will turn around and go, oh, and they kind of get that, oh geez, you know, and back, that must be so horrible. And I just felt like that should be written in a song. That's how I express myself best, I guess. And I had no idea that song would go on to affect so many other families who have little Haleys in their world too, and it still does to this day.
What is the message that you're trying to awaken people to as spokesman for this organization?
I think to put it simply, that no one has the right to take the life of someone else. We used to call that murder, you know, and under certain circumstances we still do. Under other circumstances we call it compassion or mercy, and it's not. I mean, no one can decide what's in someone's mind, and I don't think anyone, any spouse or anyone else, or certainly a hospital board, a panel, you know, a death panel, whatever anybody wants to call it, least of which government bureaucrats should have the right to decide who lives and who dies. And again, we're not even talking so much about the extraordinary means. We're just talking about there are certain states now that you have to have a prescription for the food and water. And that's going to be everywhere. I mean, once Obamacare is fully in place, it's just going to expedite that, which is a movement that's been going on a long time, but this is just going to speed things up drastically. Right. A doctor having to write you a prescription for food and water. I mean, whatever happened to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, everybody forgets the life part. Right. We have an inalienable right to life.
And with the financial incentive, these people who can't speak for themselves and who are perceived to have a lesser quality of life will be the first ones that people will want to shuttle aside, and the bureaucracy will want to move out of the system because too expensive, too much of a burden on the system.
Sure, there's exactly burden on this, and that reminds me of the Soviet Union. It reminds me of Nazi Germany, the Third Reich. I mean, it's like, well, in other words, these people can't do anything for the state. They are of no service to us. They're a burden on the state. They're a heavy weight we have to get rid of. So let's just kind of ease them on out and make room for other people. And that's despicable. I'm sorry. And so against biblical teaching, so against church teaching, so against just common sense, if you ask me.
You have a new album out, Through It All, His Love Remains. Tell me about this. There's some classic hymns here. There are also some specifically Catholic pieces. What was the inspiration for this?
Well, I've wanted to do that album ever since I started making records, because I thought one of these days, you know. But in my heyday, the '90s and early 2000s, you know, you never really could get someone willing to say, we want you to do this and we're going to fund you doing it. Because at the end of the day, they were like, well, it's okay that you believe in stuff, but let's just kind of keep that on the down low, you know. And so I'm so thankful that I finally got the opportunity to make this record. I mean, it is songs that I've always loved in the church that I learned later. You know, I'd never heard I Am the Bread of Life till I became a Catholic. But like Amazing Grace, How Great Thou Art, Were You There? Right. I knew those songs from my Protestant upbringing, and I just picked my favorite ones. And of course, I could do 6 more volumes of this because there's so many to choose from. But then we also added a few songs of our own, three songs of our own that we felt like fit with it. And already I'm getting stuff back about how this music has made me want to read. I've fallen away. I'm a fallen away Catholic, and now I'm like, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, so when I see that, I thought, okay, mission accomplished. My goal was to just say yes and let God do what he wanted to do with me, and he's doing it.
There's a song on here, I Get What I Need, which you're going to perform for us.
Yes.
Tell us about the song and why you chose it.
Well, I thought it fit really well on this album. I actually recorded it once many years ago, about 9 years ago, on the last album I did for Sony. And it was an album cut, and it never saw the light of day, and maybe it was a little too heavy for country radio or whatever. And the fans have always loved me singing this song, and I've continued to do it live. It tells us, it talks about the uniformity of God's will. In other words, being able to just accept what the will of God is, and know that when you pray for what you think you want. But I always end every prayer with you. But regardless of what I said, Lord, thy will be done. That's the greatest few words I think we can hang on to, is he knows best. And sometimes it's really, really hard to accept his will because it's painful. And that's what that song is about. I don't always get what I want, but I get what I need. I knew all the answers, the way my life should go. And when I used to say my prayers, I would tell God so. It seemed he wasn't listening. I thought he didn't care. But looking back, it's plain to see he was always there. I prayed for strength, and I got pain that made me strong. I prayed for courage, and I got fear to overcome. When I prayed for faith, my empty heart brought me to my knees. Oh, I don't always get what I want, I get what I need. I'm not saying that it's easy or that it doesn't hurt. When nothing seems to go my way, nothing seems to work. But these days I'm getting better at going with the flow, accepting that sometimes the answer to a prayer is no. Prayed for strength, and I got pain that made me strong. I prayed for courage, but I got fear to overcome. When I prayed for faith, my empty heart brought me to my knees. Oh, I don't always get what I want, I get what I need. Time I've had a door slammed in my face, in time a better one was opened in its place. I prayed for strength, and I got pain that made me strong. I prayed for courage, and I got fear to overcome. When I prayed for faith, my empty heart brought me to my knees. Oh, I don't always get what I want, I get what I need. No, I seldom get what I want, but I get what I need.
Your music has always tackled not only, I think, humanity's experience, and what I love about country music, aside from the Great American Songbook, you've got country music. And the two of them tell humanity's tale. Love and loss, finding it and losing it. You've also touched on some social themes. In Little Rock, it was about alcoholism. You had I Think About You, which was about exploitation of women. Do you see this work, this new album, in its own way, focusing attention on a different message?
I think it's more blatant and it's obvious. I think those other attempts were my subliminal tries of saying, "Hey, this is what I really think, and this is," but I have to disguise it as a hit record,
right,
you know,
right.
and do that, walk that tightrope. You know, this is the first chance I've had to just come right out and say, "Look, this is who I am. This is who I've always been. I'm proud of it." And I'm humbled by the chance to get to sing this music. But yes, I think there's an urgency in my life now and in my career. After Haley's passing, I always thought that if she ever goes, I'm going to be useless. I'm done. I'll just want to sit in a corner and stare out the window. And God didn't let me do that. I wanted to kind of go with her, to be honest with you. I was saying, well, just take me too. And he had other plans. He said he's not done with me yet, obviously. And so when I cleared from that fog, all I could think of was, well, now I'm going to use the voice that's still the same as it was 20 years ago. My drive is still the same pretty much as it was 20 years ago. My musical knowledge, etc. So now I want to use that stuff for whatever he wants me to use it for. Because if I do meet him tomorrow or 20 years from now or whenever, or next week, he's not going to say, "How many platinum records did you hang on the wall? How many #1 songs did you have? How much money did you make?" He's going to say, "I gave you this gift. What'd you do with it?" And like I said, the earlier attempts were my little tries in the midst of a very secular, kind of dark business. This is my blatant attempt to say, I want to spread the word of God. Well,
I would argue that your early work, Love Me and those other great songs that you produced, that too had, I think, a great force in that it was on every radio station, it was on everybody's CD player, and it had that sense of grace buried in those lyrics, and that the truth, I think, that cuts through to people, and it's still in your work today. And
thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. I do think that I was maybe I was a square peg in a round hole, or however that goes in country music in those days, because that's not the norm. Right. What I was trying to do is not the norm there. But there was a place for me then. There's not really a place for me now, because it's kind of streamlined back to more of a real selective, we only aim at this one demographic type thing. And so I thought that was God's cue to say, you're done. You did all you could do there, and now just be who you are.
Well, the beauty of country is, I think the audience innately picks up on the truth of the song, and that goes on and on, despite some of these acts that I think are rock parading as country acts. You're the real deal, Colin Ray. Thanks for being here.
So much.
And Colin's going to sing us out. Here's another tune from his new CD, His Love Remains.
In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus. Oh, give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. Give me Jesus. And when I am alone, oh, when I am alone, yes, when I am alone, give me Jesus. Oh, give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. Give me Jesus. And when I come to die, Lord, when I come to die, oh, when I come to die, just give me Jesus. Oh, give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. Just give me Jesus. Oh, give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. Just give me Jesus.
His Love Remains is available at colinray.com or wherever CDs are still sold. And to find out more about Terri Schaivo's Life and Hope Network, go to lifeandhope.com. Well, you probably know him best as a Bond villain from Goonies, Die Hard. The man is ubiquitous and has been in cinema through most of his life, but now he's changing tack ever so slightly. He's now taking on Frank Sinatra. Would you welcome to the program Robert Davi?
Hey, thanks, Raymond.
Great to have you.
I wouldn't say take on Sinatra. I'm paying tribute to Sinatra.
Paying tribute to Sinatra. Well,
Yeah.
it is taking
I would
on.
never want to take him on.
This is a pretty heavy responsibility, carrying these songs to a new generation.
Yeah.
That's what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. That's
We got a glimpse of the musical side of Robert Davi when The Dukes came out, which is a film you directed, starred in, and we got a little bit of your singing. Why did you feel called at this moment to produce this album, Davi Sings Sinatra?
Well, it's Davi Sings Sinatra on the Road to Romance. Several reasons. I started out as a singer, as you know, and that was my first big passion. And there was there was something brewing in me when I did the Dukes that I wanted to go into singing and communicate through song. And there's also where you feel something in the country that there was this music responded to. That this music, when my parents grew up, we were going through difficult times.
Sure.
And it was an optimistic, hopeful thing, you know, a group of music. So the thing is, there's an overwhelming need for me to do this music right now and to communicate through song. And I said, you know, I've been given a gift by God to sing. I have, because it's a gift from God. I says, and I haven't used it. And that's really what I says, and what better way to communicate to people and bring people together than through singing, no matter what their political ideology, no matter what their race, religion, you know.
Right.
And that was, and that impulse and the need to express through song just grew. You know, that's, again, this music was what made the world fall in love with America.
Yeah, why this music? Why, and this American songbook, as it's called. This is music basically from the 1920s to the 60s.
Right.
Tin Pan Alley stuff, a lot of it came from Broadway and Hollywood musicals. Why do you think it's so lasting and people are still drawn to it? And why are you specifically drawn to it?
Well, first off, as you said, where it comes from, the music, and you had the great black jazz and jump blues artists. You had, you know, that created a style of music that at that time was the jazz. And the Louis Armstrongs and, you know, all these great artists, and Billie Holiday. Then you had the writers that were writing the songbook, the Harold Arlen, the Cole Porter, the Yip Harburg, the Gershwins, the Irving Berlin. And you have all these guys. I mean, Irving Berlin, you got to realize, wrote the song Over There. And he got the Congressional Medal of Honor because during World War I, when they did Over There, that song united our country and became, from isolationists, helped bring troops over there. And Caruso sang that song, and my grandfather played that song for me as a kid on that old Victrola that we had in the basement. So this music has I grew up on it along with Caruso and Sinatra, and I just understand it has an optimistic, hopeful feeling about it. It transcends nationalities, it transcends your time. At my concert last week in the Grove.
I happened to be, when you were at the Grove, I was there. And I've got to tell you, you had what, 30 pieces, 30-piece orchestra? I mean, it's a big orchestra. The thing that struck me, you had a few invited people down front. Behind the barricades were teams of young people who were just strolling around, shopping, eating. They came out of these places and they gathered around the barricades to listen to you. And it was fascinating to watch all of these people kind of bounce to this beat, but they were very attentive. They were listening. They were watching. It was interesting for me to see that, because frankly, I didn't expect that. I thought, oh, this will be nice. Those of us who know the music are going to love this. But it was people who obviously this was new to them, but it resonated. Why do you think it resonates?
Part of the thinking is, and a lot of people are saying, you know, I look at Goonies, James Bond, Die Hards, Cops and Robertsons. I mean, the good, the bad, and the ugly of film that I've done.
Right.
And the amount of people culturally that over the years that remember the face, maybe necessarily. So that's part of that. But but beyond that, this music from 10 to 80, you can, you know, Lady Gaga might have a niche. This one might have a niche. This music doesn't. This music encompasses everyone that hears it, falls in love with it, and uplifts the spirit of the whole country and the world.
So you really see this almost as a mission to unite people via song, to unite the country and restore that sense of optimism and joy that perhaps we're not feeling so much these days.
That's 1,000%. I mean, if anything, look at the divisiveness we have, you know, the political parties, and I blame both political parties. There's nobody that's innocent in what's happened to our great country here. And again, this is the golden age of American music. We have, the title of it is Davi Sings Sinatra on the Road to Romance.
Why? Why'd you title it that?
Well, while it has certain aspects of romance, from the meeting and the seduction, the elation of seduction and falling in love, and then the depth of love, and then falling out of love, and the despair of love, and then reawakening, and then finding oneself. Besides that transition, it's the romance that we have for America, to reawaken and re-inspire our love affair with our country, and not go around apologizing for what, you know, men and women make decisions, not the country as a whole. The ideal of America should be held and celebrated, and that's what this music does. It doesn't tear it down. It celebrates this country.
And the country relies upon our principles, our values, and the heart of the country, which we often forget about. I want to give people a little taste of Davi Sings Sinatra.
You're going to have to make a pizza for that, though.
No, just a little taste. A little taste. Here we go. Take a look.
I've got the world on a string, sitting on a rainbow. Got that string around my finger. What a world, what a life, I'm in love. I've got a song that I sing, I can make the rain go anytime I move my finger. Lucky me, can't you see I'm in love?
Davi Sings Sinatra on the Road to Romance is available now at all retailers. For more information on Robert Davi and his Sinatra tour, visit DaviSingsSinatra.com. Well, that is all the time we have. Before we go, if you're looking for the perfect Christmas gift, may I recommend Of Thee I Zing, my comic cultural intervention with Laura Ingraham. This New York Times bestseller is available at bookstores everywhere, and it makes a perfect stocking stuffer. It's even the right size. And all week long, whether I'm in this chair or not, I'm always posting stories and commentary on my Facebook and Twitter pages. So be part of the conversation and don't miss stories you won't find anywhere else. Go to RaymondArroyo.com. The Facebook and Twitter pages are linked on the left-hand side of the homepage. Well, happy Thanksgiving and enjoy your time with your families, turkeys and all. I meant the bird. Until next week, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, I'm Raymond Arroyo. We'll see you next time. Bye now. Wallace.